Sit!
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Richard Dotson. He's Garrett Price.
How's it going?
Going good, Garrett. No pussyfooting around this time. We're getting right into the business. And that is Dynasty Fantasy Football wide receiver sells for June of 2025. And this show's going to be, if you listen to yesterday's show, it went a full hour. I rambled about a lot of things. Yeah,
we had some RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins talk, even though that wasn't wide receiver.
A little subtle talk about that. So with wide receiver sells, I'm looking at the ADP. And the reason this show's going to be shorter because I'm going to say right now, outside, so say a guy's a sell, he has to be in the top 36, essentially, right? Otherwise, you can't say go sell this guy, but then he's wide receiver 45. What? Why? What are you going to, for a nickel? What are you going to do with a nickel? You know, dropping the quarterback, if your back's feeling a little achy, you're not picking it up. Come on, what are we doing here? So I'm looking at the guys here in the top 36, and for the most part, Garrett, I feel pretty good right now about the things. Now, there's two guys at the bottom here, wide receiver 36 and wide receiver 33. They're rookies I'm going to talk about. But it's going to be short and kind of brief. But outside of, I think, maybe a couple guys that you're going to explain and this guy here that I'm going to talk about, I think outside of those guys, I feel really good where the ADP is. I think
sure.
We mentioned A.J. Brown entering year 28. He's still got a couple of years left. He's wide receiver 14. And if you're getting A.J. Brown at wide receiver 14, I feel really good about that. You know what I mean? He hasn't reached that age yet. He's 27. He's about to be 28.
If you would have got Mike Evans or Cooper Kupp or Devonta Adams at 28, you're feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, 100%. So my first wide receiver sell is somebody who was a buy last year. And again, it's just about
things change,
opportunity, how quickly things change. And now he's seen a significant jump in his ADP because of what he did last year. And that's wide receiver Terry McLaurin. He's currently going as wide receiver 23. And you're like, oh, dude, Terry McLaurin was just a wide receiver 1 for the first time. But the fact that Terry McLaurin's only been a wide receiver 1 once his entire life. I love the fact that he's now paired up with Jaden Daniels. Love it. But when I see him go at wide receiver 23, and again, this is not I don't like Terry McLaurin. It's just the ADP behind him that I like. Terry McLaurin's going to be 30 years old. I think by the time the season kicks off, he's going to be pretty close to 30 years old. Somewhere early in the season, it's turned 30. And unfortunately, I've said how these players are going to start playing longer and longer. We still have yet to see those receivers thrive at 31 years old. There's always the outliers here and there. Like I said, I like Stephon Diggs this year. He's 31. Can he do it at 31? We'll see. But even the greats like AJ Greens, Julio Jones, they all just fall off at they can do it at 30, but they really can't do it at 31. So the fact that Terry McLaurin's about to be 30 years old, which means next year will be a 31 year. He's wide receiver 23. I'm looking at guys behind him like Chris Olave, Emeka Egbuka, Jordan Addison, Jalen Waddle, George Pickens. Think guys along those like Jerry Jeudy. How can I get significant 3 to 4 years younger with that same range of outcome of upside? A Jalen Waddle who's going 9 picks after him has been wide receiver 7 overall twice already. He's been a wide receiver 1 twice. Terry McLaurin's been a wide receiver 1 once. He's 3 years younger than Terry McLaurin. The fact that Terry's holding out of mandatory minicamp to prove a point and missing reps, I don't like that. No. We'll see how this does he end up getting traded? What happens there? Does he get extended? How comfortable are they extending a 30-year-old receiver at the same time? Do they want to really do that to themselves? there's a lot going on that I just don't love from a dynasty standpoint. So for me, if I can get out from Terry McLaurin, and I don't think anybody's now, even though the ADP is this way, because remember, ADP is different than making trades. Like, I don't think anybody's trading you Terry Emeka Ibuka straight up for Terry McLaurin. I don't think that's happening. But I think there's a path to get Jalen Waddle, George Pickens, Jordan Addison with Terry McLaurin. And if they're behind him in ADP, and that range is like, I had to give up a second round pick on top of giving up Terry McLaurin, I feel very comfortable doing that. I think Terry McLaurin in Washington can still be a very solid dynasty asset for 2025. But boy, like, when anybody hits 31 years old, I have a lot of worry from that point on to feel like I'm going to get no value. Because historically, you get no value outside of the tight ends that hit that range. There's not, I mean, what receivers? I mean, Jerry Rice. How many receivers that like we see that are that old that really produce?
Larry Fitzgerald did.
Larry, okay. Again, I'm sure we see
talking all-time greats.
Yeah, there's gonna be some outliers always here and there, but like, again, you talk about Elijah Moore, that late breakout. Like, I mean, Terry McLaurin again has not produced at a high level until this past year, which we predicted, right? We thought he was a great buy because we thought he was going to produce at a high level this past year, and I think he'll produce at a high level this year. But it's just about seeing that value window, and then wide receiver 23 tells me, ooh, this is a really chance to get out from under this old prospect to get younger.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And in fact, we did a pre-draft version of this show, and Terry McLaurin was the guy that I was on board with selling pre-draft before we saw what happened in the draft, because I just couldn't see them walking away this offseason without adding a wide receiver weapon. And it didn't come via the draft, but it did come via trade to get Deebo Samuel on this team. So now there is another mouth to feed. Do I think that takes a ton away from him? No. But the thing that probably worries me the most, the age is legitimate. The thing that honestly worries me the most about Terry McLaurin is his touchdown rate. We have never seen him be a double-digit touchdown guy in his entire career. Now, all of a sudden, he has a 13 touchdown season. That's going to be a tough number to replicate this year, specifically because of how crazy efficient he was in the red zone. In the red zone this past season, Terry McLaurin only had 14 targets. 14 targets. So, I mean, we're talking about wide receiver wise, he was in the late teens, early 20s as far as targets go. Guys like Amon-Ra 31, Jamar Chase 33, Drake London 23. Like, these guys had a lot more than him. Terry McLaurin only had 14 targets in the red zone, but he caught 12 of those passes and had 9 touchdowns, which led all players in red zone touchdowns. That just doesn't seem like something that's likely to be replicated this season. So for me, I just think there's enough, I shouldn't say a bunch. There's enough funky numbers. There's enough, hey, we've seen this team for 1 year with Jaden Daniels. Let's adjust and rebound. And now Deebo is going to be part of the equation as well. There's just enough there to say, would I really rather him over some of these other guys? And I just wouldn't.
And Deebo's a dynamic weapon in the red zone as well. And he's a multi-tool player that can really get really creative with their, definitely the guy like Jaden Daniels. Again, not a really strong running game, so Deebo Samuel can be used in the backfield as well. Not, like you said, not a lot ton of weapons out there in Washington. So getting Deebo, and how excited they were to get Deebo. I mean, remember, a lot of people are like, oh, if you're going to trade for Deebo, you're going to San Francisco going to eat some of that contract. Washington took the whole contract as well. So they were happy to pay Deebo Samuel. So that will kind of affect Terry McLaurin. You mentioned his touchdown metrics really inflate those numbers. We look at regression when people are like overly inflated because of touchdowns. It's such a hard thing to replicate as well. And the fact that he was so efficient in doing it, all this points to just regression for Terry McLaurin. Now, again, can it turn into a solid 2025 for sure? But if you're going to get out, now's the perfect time to get out. This is the perfect sell window for Terry McLaurin. I'm looking to get younger. some guy like, again, if somebody's trying to win now, like, can I get Jaden Higgins plus for Terry McLaurin? Right? Can I get Jaden Higgins and maybe a 27 second? Like, I would love some of those lines. Jack Bastian a second for Terry McLaurin.
Yep.
These are all play. Now, that said, it really does depend where my team is, right? Like, if I'm a serious contender and I got Terry McLaurin and I need him, then I'm go ahead and
ride down with the ship.
Yeah. But if I'm anything but that, I got to move. And that's even like, hey, I'm a playoff team, but like, okay, like I'm a playoff team. I got to kind of like hedge my bet here a little bit. Can I get a player like, so again, we're not talking about giving Terry McLaurin away, but can I get a bit like, can I get Jordan Addison for him? Right. Still offers that upside, a top 24 receiver. Can I get Jaden Higgins, who offers that kind of that, Jordan Addison upside? And by the way, Jaden Higgins had that sweet one-handed catch today in OTAs. It looked real sexy. So yeah, just a player moved. I think you backed it up pretty well there as well. What do you got on the table here?
Yeah, so I went with two guys. I ended up going with wide receiver 20 and 21 on our list. And these are both players that I like quite a bit. And we'll start talking about the first one, and that is wide receiver 21, Xavier Worthy. Right now, I get it. He's coming off a playoff where he looked solid. He looked like a good asset for this team in the playoffs. You get to see more of these players when they go to the Super Bowl too, so they stay fresh in your mind a little bit longer. We love that speed. We love what he can do. And he did enough over the course of the season to say, like, hey, there's definitely some things here that we can work with. Maybe he's not just a speed merchant. And I would agree with that. I don't think he's just a speed merchant. I think he is more than that. However, that being said, I do have some legitimate concerns about Xavier Worthy. So when grading this player out, PFF this past season graded him out as the 75th receiver. 75th. So we're talking all the teams had their wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 ahead of this guy. And many teams had a wide receiver 3 that graded out higher. And that's real football. I get that. But graded out as a 75th player. Yards per route run. Very good stat for wide receivers that translates to fantasy points. 76th in that. And I'm not taking like all players. I even took out the players that got only, 25 targets and things like that. Like I even got rid of those guys. 76th in yards per route run. So he's out there getting calisthenic workouts week in, week out. He's not getting targeted. He's not getting big plays in yards on his routes. And even last year, he was okay in targets. He was 38th in targets, which is not bad. But I don't see that number going up significantly. You're like, well, it's a second season. He's going to get a bigger role. Yeah, he played his entire rookie season other than 3 games, basically, without Rashee Rice, who's going to be this team's wide receiver 1 in the long run. We saw that he can do some things that other guys in this offense just cannot do. Travis Kelce is still annoying. Yes, he's not the same guy he used to be, but he's still there and he is still going to command targets. And Noah Gray's been getting more involved in this offense over the years. So I just don't see how he's going to pay off as a guy that you're going to be drafting consistently as a top 24 wide receiver. I look at some of the guys that you mentioned, Terry McLaurin's 2 spots behind him, but right behind him, Zay Flowers. I would much rather Zay Flowers. Guys like Emeka Buka, Chris Olave, like all those guys. Like I'm much more comfortable with Xavier Worthy in the like Ricky Pearsall type range of like, hey, he's got upside, he's got potential. But for me, this season, he did not prove anything to me that would say he's a legitimate fantasy asset. So I know he's fun. I know he's fast. I know he's exciting. But and we've seen this type of player. There's very few of these types of players that are mainly about speed, that are big roller coaster boom bust guys. Like the last one that I remember regularly with his body type, style, and all that, regularly winning was Deshaun Jackson. And even his career was a bit of a roller coaster at times as well. So I don't really see it with Xavier Worthy. And I think what he did this year gave you just enough to be able to get out from him and still make a little bit of a profit from where you drafted him last year.
Yeah, this is a player I'm going to disagree with you on. Everything you said is why I'm still like tantalized by Xavier Worthy. Like the way they used him, kind of like that gadget player.
But when do gadget players work?
He's got first round draft pedigree. Deebo Samuel.
They're completely different
so
players.
Fast. He's twitchy. He's one of those rare super fast receivers that can actually run routes. Like you don't see, like Tyreek Hill is one of those guys. I'm not comparing to Tyreek Hill. Just enough for me. Like, listen, there's for ADP wise, Garrett. Like I'm with you. Like there's definitely some guys here that I would like. Zay Flowers, like you mentioned, who's right behind him. Emeka Buka, Chris Olave, Jordan Addison, like all those other guys I just meant. Like, but I don't think I'd go as far down as where you went, the Pearsall range. I'd probably move Xavier Worthy closer to the George Pickens range, which would be wide receiver 30, and he's wide receiver 21, where you're moving down like wide receiver 38. So I mean you more in the middle here. Like I think his ADP is a little bit higher for me because you're right. He did just enough to get a high ADP bump. No Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is really good in Kansas City. And I think Xavier Worthy could hold this mark. That's the thing. I think he could hold this with a slight bump. Like I could think he could bump.
So you think he could be a wide receiver 2?
Yeah, 100%.
Football. Okay.
Yeah, I think he can. I 100% think he can. Definitely with that weak ass run game in Kansas City. Not a lot going on there. How innovative Andy Reid is. How innovative Pat Mahomes is when things break down. Or just creative in their play style and what they could do together, him and Andy Reid, when it comes to play creativity and how exciting they can use a guy like Xavier Worthy. And we kind of saw it like the first game Xavier Worthy played, we saw that. And then we kind of saw it later in the season as well. I do want to see how it works with Rashee Rice, but that doesn't worry me too much. So the fact that he's only 22 years old, he's got first round draft pedigree, he's with Pat Mahomes. I'm okay with moving him down a couple spots. There's some guys I would take him for here. So there's some guys like, oh, hey, you're offering me a Emeka Buka straight up for Xavier Worthy. Like I'm all over that, right? Like guys that might have a little bit more clear path to be the number 1, number 2. I'm just not as down as you are on them because there's also some guys here I wouldn't take. I guess I would bump probably Ricky Pearsall up ahead of some of these other guys.
Well, and I would too. I would have him more at wide receiver. I think in my rankings, I can double check it, but I'm pretty sure in my rankings he's wide receiver 34. So I think those are more of the range that I would have him in because there's a couple of these rookies that we're going to talk about that I would probably take Worthy over them. So yeah, he would probably be right around wide receiver 33, 34 for me, which is still, 12 spots at wide receiver alone.
Yeah. And I get it. I get where you're coming from because we talk about sometimes it's about windows. It's just I'm a little bit more comfortable with where even though I want to bump down a couple, it's not as drastic as you want to be. Because I still think there is that wide receiver where you're I don't see that wide receiver 2 upside. I do see that wide receiver 2.
I think even if we see him be exactly where he's being drafted, wide receiver 21 this year, a lot of that is going to be on 3 games. And those 3 weeks, you're going to be thrilled. But those other 14, you're going to be man, 3 catches for 42 yards. Dang, that's tough.
That's where it comes into that Deshaun Jackson. Who's the guy for the Texans?
You're looking at
you remember
he was the straight line guy that he did.
Will Fuller. Yeah. Those were at the end of the year, this receiver, but it all came off of 4 games.
It was Gabe Davis for a while did that.
Yep. Yeah. So you always have to be cautious of those players too. Those guys you can't put in your lineup. Again, I see where you're coming from. I just think there's a little bit more meat on the bone with Worthy than those guys. That's all. But your point is if that's your worry, I understand the worry. Yeah. I'm just not there. I haven't gotten that point. So, All right. Well, before we get to our next guy, I got to tell you about our friends over at FastDraft. Again, if you're playing best ball, you want to have some fun times and do some drafts. FastDraft is it. You can get into a draft and do it in less than 5 minutes. We talk about FastDraft's a new website that they're partnering with us. They're really trying to get the word out there, let you know, hey, we are a new best ball site for you to get in here and get some action on. And those sometimes are the best sites to play on because the action's not as competitive, right? Like you don't have those sharks in there that are literally throwing 1,000 different lineups out there using algorithms to dominate the leagues. And it gets you a chance to really enjoy these best ball leagues and have a legitimate chance to win. And FastDraft is going to give you the opportunity to get in, have a really quick best ball draft, and have an opportunity to still win some very serious money, right? Like if you win $50,000 anywhere else, like you're telling your whole family about it, you're telling me about it. And they have those kind of prize pools over at FastDraft. So check them out. That's all we're asking you to do right now. Like you can get in there, use the promo code NERDS. You're going to match your deposit up to $50, 100% up to $50, and get in there. Just check it out. I mean, if you like doing best ball, have a diverse portfolio. Trust us. Trust a good website. Trust our partners. FastDraft is that. That is somebody who, listen, when we talk to ad revenue partners and podcast people that want to advertise on the podcast, we get inundated with offers all the time. Like when I say every day that people want to advertise on a podcast, it's every day. But we want to make sure it's a right fit for our audience, and FastDraft is just that. So check them out. Go to draftfaster.com. Go in your app store, get FastDraft. Put a promo code in NERDS and do some best ball drafts and see if you have a good time. And what's a good time? Winning. And Dynasty analysts, I always say, they have a better time definitely early summer on to win some of these best ball drafts because you're getting on the rookies where other people are kind of sleeping on them because you know where the value is and that clear path to opportunity. If you use the promo code NERDS, we're going to hook you up with a free 1-year membership to Dynasty Nerds. You're going to get all the tools, everything that comes out from here to the next year, you're going to get included in your membership. All you got to do is use that promo code NERDS and play a $10 contest. From the GM to the film room, everything we got. FastDraft is a great partner by letting us offer that to you. So it's a great opportunity for you to kind of take advantage of that, to try a new best ball website and get a free year of Dynasty Nerds. And to our existing users, dude, we love you too. We're going to hook you up. We're going to give you a free $25 gift certificate to the merch store. So just imagine if you put in $25, you're going to get a free nerd shirt. You're going to get a free $25 from FastDraft, and you're going to get your $25 of value that you're going to be able to do drafts on. So you're getting triple your value essentially for using that promo codes. So check it out. FastDraft, promo code NERDS. Get hooked up today.
All right. And don't forget that they are now available in Pennsylvania and I think Canada as well. And we also don't want to forget about FFPC. We're talking about right sponsors, right fits. They're the perfect fit. If you want to play Dynasty Fantasy Football, there's no safer, smarter, or even big value place to play than at FFPC. You can get in some leagues where you can win some crazy, crazy money. I'm talking buy-in where it's 2.5K that you can get in on. So head over there, myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Use promo code NERDS. We'll give you $25 off that entry. That's a lot if it's only a $35 league. If it's a 2K league, it's not as much, but you're a baller anyway. You don't even need us, but help us out. Use the promo code NERDS.
All right. So for my next sell, we've had shows like this before. Like I'm never going to force a topic or a show topic just to talk on something that I don't believe in, right? Like I'm not going to tweet stuff for clicks. I'm not bait clicking out there, right? You get these people out there that do that, and kudos. If it works, it puts money in your pocket. That's how you want to do it, your business, handle it. Totally cool. No hating for me. Just not something that I'm into. So like I started the show, like I see a lot of like, I just kind of agree with the ADP, right? Like I'm more into the buys than I am the sells. And looking here at the receivers, like the only ones I'm a little bit kind of like down on are the ones that you're going to hear me say that I've repeated. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. It's Matthew Golden and Luther Burden who are in the top 36. And I get it. People are chasing that wide receiver youth upside, but I would just take a more of a sure thing and kind of being what I've kind of said before, when it goes to Matthew Golden, yes, he's got a first round pedigree, but this is a team with Jordan Love that just really likes to push the ball around a ton. They have 2 good young tight ends. They have a ton of receivers out there. They have a running back who's a pass catcher running back in Josh Jacobs. Like, I just don't see the target share that's going to get him into that top 24 receivers. Now, could he? 100%. He's an unknown NFL player. He's a rookie with first round pedigree that played an offense that really didn't know how to utilize their receivers in Texas. So with Matthew Golden, he's a nice receiver. Like, I like him, but just looking at the stats of how Matt LaFleur uses offense, how Jordan Love likes to spread the ball around, I don't see how this turns into a stud receiver. We saw like Jaden Reed, who was a high second round pick, hit the ground running last year, week 1, and then kind of just fell off because why? They spread the ball around. This is an offense that only targets the receivers last year 48.5%. The other percent targets went to Josh Jacobs, which saw 15, and I think close to 20 for the tight ends. And then I think some other running backs that got some targets there. And for me, when I see a guy who has top 30 ADP and there's proven assets behind him, they're still young. Like, again, we mentioned his name a ton, like a Jerry Jeudy, someone that falls along. It's like, I get Jerry Jeudy plus. Like, I'd rather take that and willing to risk losing out on a guy who you would hope be a wide receiver 1, Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's been a wide receiver 1 once this past year. That's all he's done it. The odds of Matthew Golden ever being a wide receiver 1, to me, are pretty low. I would honestly, Garrett, on an Isaiah likely meter, I would give it a 3. Like, that's how, like,
sounds all right.
Could it be? For sure. Like 30% chance. And same thing with Luther Burden. Like, Luther Burden, when he gets the ball in his hands, is a fantastic receiver. He's got really good draft pedigree. It was like the 7th player taken in the 2nd round. But when they take it, again, I mean, redundant from past shows, but when you take a guy like 10th overall at tight end, you got another tight end, Cole Kmet. You take a guy top 10 overall in Rome Odunze, and you extended a stud receiver, former first round pick in DJ Moore. I have to know how that's going to translate to fantasy football points, because it's hard enough to be the number 2 receiver and be an elite asset and be a first round pick, like a Jordan Addison, right? Like, Jordan Addison is like the number 2 receiver, and Justin Jefferson missed some time. He's still not elite. He's a fine wide receiver 2, right? Which is fine. You're happy with Jordan Addison, but he's not that elite player. And with that kind of ADP, like, that's like wide receiver 3 ADP. I think there's too many players that can outproduce and give you like high-end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. It's like, I don't see a path even on his own team for outproducing Rome Odunze, outproducing DJ Moore, and outproducing even probably a Colston Loveland. I don't see that path. So it just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that player is a very talented player, but be no different than a really talented player going to Baltimore, right? Like, or a talented replay, like Calvin Ridley's a talented player. Are people overly excited about him? No, he's a little bit older, and I get it, but there's too much youth that I see for these receivers. And listen, I would take Matthew Golden over Luther Burden. But looking at some of these guys that are behind him, it's just like, all right, I would rather go ahead and go this way. And if this pans out, sweet, but that's an outlier. I'm not going to bet out outliers. Can I get more? Like you mentioned, like earlier, like a Chris Godwin. And if I'm really trying to win, like, and if you're not, when you're rebuilding and you're starting from scraps, like these are the kind of guys, if you want to put them on your roster, I'm okay with it. You're not going to go ahead for a Chris Godwin, but man, would I rather have Chris Godwin than Luther Burden? Man, would I rather have Jerry Jeudy? And to be honest with you, a guy who you talked about last show, I think it was last show you talked about him, was Ricky Pearsall. Like, if I had to gamble on Ricky Pearsall or Luther Burden, who's got a clearer path to targets, who's still got first round draft pedigree, like, or I mean, he actually got better draft pedigree, it's Ricky Pearsall. And he's going significantly lower than Luther Burden. Jalen Waddle, who's only 26, who's been a wide receiver 1 twice. DK Metcalf is 27 years old. The clear-cut number 1 target for Aaron Rodgers, and there's nobody else really around him whatsoever. Like, there's even a guy like you just mentioned, like Xavier Worthy. There's so many different ways I'd rather go than to gamble on that. Like, I hate players that, yes, you like the player, right? Like, you can make this, you can sit here and tell me why this player is good, and I can listen to you. But at the same time, when you have a ton of other young, higher drafted pedigree ahead of them, that you need so much, like, then if you have to, once you tell me how good a player is, if it's a long conversation, if you can't tell me that player's path to be the number 1 or number 2 target in that offense in a very short period of time, then again, that's a long, hard path for me to find for fantasy football success, because you need the targets and you need the receptions. Like you mentioned, a guy like worthy to be a roller coaster, to be week in, week out successful. Even if Luther Burden has a good, I 100% think Luther Burden will have a game or two that, like, oh, he put up 25 fantasy points, 2 touchdowns. They manufactured touches for 100%. There's 0.0. I mean, 0.0 confidence I have that week in, week out, you're going to feel confident and put him in your lineup. And that's any point. I don't feel that way for the next couple of years. And I know things in the NFL could change at a drastic, on a drop of a dime, right? They could be like, they invested in Colston Love, then they invested in Luther Burden. If Rome Odunze got traded in the offseason next year, you're like, oh my God, they traded Rome Odunze, who they spent, like, that stuff like that happens in the NFL all the time. TJ Moore gets traded, for sure. Like, but as of things stand right now, I don't see that. And I'm not going to sit here and project future trades or injuries or for him to jump this guy. I don't see that path. And then and I don't think there's anybody out there that could explain to me how that path will turn into fantasy football production week in, week out, that I would feel like they're just trying to spin it to make their narrative sound good. I don't see it. So for me, I'm selling for more proven assets. And right now, as it stands today, you can get those assets for Luther Burden. And I feel like he's going to be one of those players that we see all the time that go high second round, maybe late first, that now when we're looking at the ADP in 2026, he's 30 spots lower. He's in that 45, 55 range. And you're like, okay, that makes more sense. And again, and at that point, I'm a little bit more interested in Luther Burden. But when he's going ahead of Jalen Waddle, I mean, come on. What are we doing here, Dynasty Fellowships?
I don't think he is actually going ahead of Jalen Waddle. Waddle's going at 29.
So he's right behind Jalen Waddle. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Burden's 35. Waddle's 29.
Okay, that's what it was. Oh, yeah. So he's right. He was in that range. I mixed it up looking at it. Yeah, he's right behind them. He's right ahead of Jerry Jeudy. He's ahead of Ricky Pearsall. He's ahead of, again, Jaden. I've drafted Jaden Higgins over Luther Burden every single opportunity that I've got. Too. And honestly, I think Trey Harris has more upside than Luther Burden. If I had to realistically
like a have team, one,
yeah, I want Trey Harris. I want Jack Bash ahead of him. I want honestly, maybe Juwan Jennings, maybe because I probably get more on top. You said he's a good buy, right? Like, can I trade Luther Burden for Juwan Jennings in a second?
And plus, sure. I bet you could. Yeah. And I think you're going to get more production definitely early out of Juwan Jennings. So yeah, I have no issue with that at all.
Who's your last French fry in the bottom of the bag?
My last one is definitely one of those guys where you're like, I like this player. I
love this player.
I don't want to sell this player.
I love the Slim Reaper.
Like, he's a good guy. But right now, wide receiver 20, one spot ahead of Xavier Worthy, we have DeVonta Smith. Now, here's why I'm willing to sell DeVonta Smith. We have seen over the course of the past 4 years him be a very good wide receiver. But in today's fantasy football, getting a good wide receiver is not hard to do. In fact, it's fairly easy to get a good one in fantasy football. Right now, over the past 3 seasons, I'm not going to count his rookie year because most players improve upon their rookie year. So over the past 3 seasons, here's been his fantasy point per game averages because he missed some time this year. So I wanted to go with points per game. He averaged 15, 14.2, and 15.3. So averaging out about 14.8 points per game, roughly, is his average over the past 3 years. Good average. Good. He is a solid player. But this past year alone, we had 28 players average 14 or more points per game at the wide receiver position. There's just plenty of them right now. So he's just not a difference maker at that spot where you're going to have to draft him. If you want to draft a safe floor guy, cool. I have no problem with it. But he's only really truly a safe floor guy for season long. He's actually been a little more roller coastery than I would have expected out of him. We've seen games like this past year, 0.8 points, 3.4, 6.9, but then he had a 30-point game, a 28-point game. So he's been a little more up and down than I would have expected from a guy like him. And right now, when I just look at even just wide receivers, I think he's in a similar range. I'm not saying I necessarily like these guys better than him, but do I think he's significantly better than Jalen Waddle, who's going at wide receiver 29 when he's going at wide receiver 20? Not really. In that range, I'd rather just kind of take the extra. Would I rather have a quarterback like a Dak Prescott? Yeah, I'd probably rather have the quarterback. There's some running backs there, Kenneth Walker, Caleb Johnson, your boy RJ Harvey. Like, there's guys there that they just have a higher ceiling, or they fit my positional need better. George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, and tight end premium, because this tight end premium ADP are going after him. So there's just a lot of guys that can make a bigger difference on my team than I think DeVonta Smith can at this point. I like the player. He's solid, steady Eddie, but there's just not much of a ceiling.
Yeah, I hate to agree. So I disagreed last one. I hate to agree with you here. Not a player I'm giving away.
No.
Names that you mentioned, for sure. Because you really want DeVonta Smith is your wide receiver 3. I feel really good about that.
Sure.
I think a lot of people are sitting him with his wide receiver 2, and that's what I don't feel good about. And we talked about, again, going back to this, my last sell, like Luther Burden, right? Like, where does it all pan out? Unfortunately, I think DeVonta Smith in a different situation, we'd be having a different conversation.
Absolutely.
AJ Brown there, the way they throw the football, they like to utilize the tight end there and too. And now the addition of Saquon Barkley, that was like the nail in the coffin for DeVonta Smith, like reaching that potential. Because DeVonta Smith, like Garrett said, I love the player. He is a grade A wide receiver. He runs fantastic routes. He can work the sideline. He's got strong hands. He's got a slim frame, but he's not even afraid to play in the middle. He is a fantastic receiver, but the product of his environment really does kind of limit his fantasy football upside for the name value, right? That former Heisman winner, first round pick, deservedly so. There's just that, and honestly, with him being like 26 and AJ Brown being 27, like they're not that far off in age where like, oh, when there's a clear path when AJ Brown leaves, he's there. Right. Saquon Barkley just signed that extension. There's no like Saquon Barkley's not going to go there by the time, DeVonta Smith hits 29 years old. So for me, you're right. Like I feel comfortable as a wide receiver 3, and he's going as a wide receiver 2. Mm-hmm. And not even saying that DeVonta Smith can't be a wide receiver 2, right? Like I'm not even saying that. Like he definitely could, but like there's way more names behind him that I'm like you said, that upside, or like even outside of receiver that could do better, like George Kittle. It's like, so what are we doing? What are we trying to build? We're trying to build dynasty championship rosters. So it really just comes to me like, where do you have DeVonta Smith on your roster?
Yeah.
If he's your 2, like then you probably need to flip him for a better 2 and find a path to use DeVonta Smith, which he can get you as a better 2. If you're at a 3, if you have a 3, you can be comfortable there, but maybe you can now use him. Like imagine like you're a contender, right? So you're going to have a late first in 26. Like what can DeVonta Smith in my 26 first get me to upgrade? Right?
Yeah.
Like you're thinking like that with DeVonta Smith. Like what can I do on top to get
could I get Puka Nacua? Could I get Drake London? Could I get like a true difference maker?
Yeah, like if somebody's like, hey, I'm selling Drake London and like I'm trying to rebuild here. Now all of a sudden you're offering DeVonta Smith your first, second, and 27 second for Drake London. Like, okay, that opens the door. And like
Garrett Wilson, JSN, like
just
guys that are gonna make the difference.
Yeah. 100%. And when you have guys that are going that range, sometimes we're saying lateral moves, like when you're a contender and you have him on there and he's in that right range, like, okay, my first is going to be late. I talk all the time, like, how do I use my first to make when I'm in that championship window? How do I get rid of that first to make my team better? I think DeVonta Smith falls in that grade A category of helping me pull that off, right? Because like a lot of times, like a first isn't good enough. Like I'm not selling Garrett Wilson for a first, but now all of a sudden you're offering a team that's trying to get some extra draft capital. They don't have their first, or they're trying to like slightly get a rebuild going. You offer DeVonta Smith, which is everybody knows he's a really good football player, but Garrett just broke down the stats that aren't really like elite stats. And then you throw your first on top of it to get an elite player. Now you just made a really savvy dynasty move.
Yeah.
So I think DeVonta Smith falls into the perfect. Here's DeVonta Smith plus draft capital to really take that step forward to build a dynasty championship caliber team.
Yeah,
because that's what it all boils down to, right? Like when we say buy sells and we're chasing value for like more value down the road, like yesterday's sells of like buying Cedric Tillmans and these guys are like low value players that could see an uptick. It's like I'm trying to accumulate value because the more value I have, like we said before, like it helps me push towards that elite player. Like here's a godfather offer you can't refuse of quality producing players. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to build that one starting lineup of like, oh my gosh, how did you get that lineup? It's just about making the right moves, right? Like nobody drafts those lineups. They trade for those lineups. They trade for those extra draft picks. Like, oh, I used all my draft picks. Well, you somehow got all those draft picks in one class. You made the right trades to put yourself in that position for success. So I think DeVonta Smith falls in that category. Here's a player that we don't hate, that we really do like, that falls into a sell because of his ADP only, that we want to utilize the ADP for a player we do like just to get better. So I think he falls in that category perfect. I think if you have him, try that. Try offering DeVonta Smith a first and a second. Because again, at that point, if you're a contender, a late second in 2026 won't be that valuable. But when you offer that on paper, a 26 first and a 26 second, a year before the draft, and DeVonta Smith, that's going to open some doors for you.
Yeah.
So I love that as a sell. So that's our show for today. We'll be back next week. We're in person next week with Matt O'Hara before we go to Cooperstown, New York. So Matt should be back next week. If he's not, well, then you and I can obviously hold down the fort very handsomely.
Oh,
we don't
very,
need his
very handsome.
Yeah, you take your looks, my looks combined together, and we're 1/3 of Matt O'Hara. And that's fine with me.
Hey, that puts us in the Hall of Fame batting average wise.
All right. All right. So we'll be back next week, Nerd Herd. Appreciate you. Love you. If you have a chance, stop. Leave us a rating review anywhere you listen. Whether it be, I don't think, can you leave rating reviews on YouTube?
You can leave.
Let's go where you listen. Yeah, leave comments too. I don't know. Like, hey, Rich, you look 2/3 as good as Matt. As good. I mean, I'm not all the way there, but come on, give me something.
We're getting there.
Please.
We're getting there. We'll
All
see
right.
you guys.
See you next week.